All right, let me introduce you to this book. It's giant, so there's a lot of space here. Uh, Feels very businesslike. I got this for $3 at a thrift store. It is a Nature Encyclopedia of America. I really like basic information, kind of old, not really valuable, but what I really loved is the end papers and some of the images inside. So what I've done is I've pre-prepped the papers, and some of them already have gesso on them. I just had extra gesso on my brush. What I've done is I've taken out every other paper and then glued 3 papers together to give it some heft and to kind of rescue some of the images. I do think a lot of the photos and illustrations in here are kind of cool, and I was maybe gonna integrate some, maybe not. It smells like Mod Podge. And this is the book. This is gonna be my next grimoire. I really wanted to work in a found book. I really wanted to work a lot bigger than I have. I can do a like single page spread in here and have room for writing, and there's space for stuffing it full of stuff because I tore out almost half of the pages. It's not alligator mouthing. Yeah, I'm very excited, and hopefully it won't disintegrate in the process. Because I have seen found books that like the signatures just sort of fall out. We're gonna tackle the cover in another video. I used to save my grimoire covers for like very, very last, and I don't want to do that because I don't like this. So we'll figure out something. If you have suggestions, you can leave them in the comments below. But today what we're gonna tackle is the little opening and book blessing page. So first I found some collage elements. So obviously I have to have a book plate. This is not what I've made myself, though I will show you the ones I make in this video, just in case you're interested in checking out my Etsy when it reopens later this month. I'll post another reminder. But this is a book plate. It is gummed. This is where I'm going to write my name and the date I started this grimoire, so I know how long I had to work on it. And then I have some, I don't know if I'm going to use these, some vintage fragile labels that are pre-gummed. I thought it would be cool with the green and kind of the like vintage feel of it. I also have some other gummed labels. I might put the sigil, protection sigil for the book on this. It looks so small compared to this page. I really struggled to find things big enough because I've been working small for so long. I have a candle that's cut out from a Christmas card, probably. And then I have some National Geographic magazine bits I thought could be cool to create like maybe like a woodland on part of it. And then the big idea, I have this, I think it's an antelope statue from Egypt. An image that my good friend Alexander Speaks sent to me, and I want to turn him into a stag with like giant leafy antlers. That's the main concept for this spread. It's going to involve a lot of paint and probably not a lot of collaging, but I think it's still going to be fun. I have these rocks potentially, and Phantom Ties Haunt. I might use the words from this. I don't know. From this newspaper. But yes, this is what we're starting with. And I'll probably go into some sort of time-lapse mode for the collaging, and then we will get to some painting and decorating. I don't want to cover all of this beautiful end paper up because this is why I wanted to use this book. So I think I'm only gonna partially use the collaging and try to like fade it downward, like an angle here. Yes, I think, and potentially I want the antlers to wrap around and hold the book plate, or the blessing. Yes. Okay, I had to let my phone cool down. So I did some arranging with the items I showed you before. So I created this diagonal. This is what was ripped from here. You can see the tree there. To create this like diagonal forest blend, and then I'm going to use the stag to cover up the holly on the candle. I really love these colors on top of this. And I think I always put a sigil in each book. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the sigil behind the candle, and it's actually going to be completely inaccessible because I'm going to glue this down fully. I've never done that before. I always made the sigil accessible. Sometimes I do the sigil with relevance to just basic book protection. This book is safe from prying eyes. This book is safe from destruction. But while I was arranging this and looking at the colors and thinking of this stag motif, I thought, why don't I revisit deity work? I haven't done deity work in a while. I kind of gave up on it. I vaguely worship goddess. I vaguely call myself a pagan and worshiping Mother Earth. But I don't really do like true deity work with any mythologies, and I'd like to change that. Still trying to figure this out. I made this little cluster here. I don't know if I like it. I don't know how I'm going to integrate or ground this. Maybe a circle would be nice, but I want to make sure as much of my background here, this paper, is visible as possible. So I actually made this diagonal even sharper, but I think it'll work with the lovely stag horns. And then lastly, I do need a ground here for the stag to live upon so he is not floating in space. So I think I might dig through my painted paper stash and see if I can find that. But let's speedrun, time-lapse, a sigil. So my sigil creation is incredibly basic, classic sigil creation. Not a ton to say on that. I don't always eliminate every single vowel. I like to keep letters that are important to the phrase. So if the entire word magic was deleted from the phrase, I would keep that in. But I'm not going to go too in-depth into it. Yes, this is my sigil process. Gouache doesn't normally come dry. I think this is European, German or something. But I'm just gonna dip into a bunch of the colors here. The places where the gloss Mod Podge was should resist the paint, but it's gouache, so it should also be able to like cause some opaque coverage. Alright, so I'm just going in, I'm bringing in some color in the gouache, I'm using it on the ground, and eventually I decide that it needs to go up into the forest as well. So I'm just kicking everything back into the background, using these soft green tones, making the whites less bright, adding color, adding some interest, adding texture. I eventually go into the splatter, and the gouache dries very chalky because of how inexpensive it is, so it added this really like lovely softness to the whole spread. I like how this dried so much that I went through and added some paint over here. It dries kind of chalky because it's cheap. But I like it. I like the look of it. So I'm ready to glue in our stag and our candle, and I'll probably add some plants around them. paint. Yes, with paint. While I'm here, I am just gonna toss this book plate in the corner here, and I think I will just have to return to this page, and I think that's okay because this is such a large book. I don't feel as pressed to have a page completed in one sitting because it's so big. It's a big project and it's going to take me a long time to fill this. Plus, I have other grimoires on the go as always. So, I think that's okay. That's fine. I also think it's fine that some paint got on this. It adds character, okay? It adds character. But I think that looks pretty magical, and I'm gonna let all this dry and we can get in here with some acrylic paints. I love coming back to things in the morning because why does he look so bald? I didn't realize that until after I looked at him after he was glued down. He looks bald, so we're gonna add his antlers. But also this looks really out of place. I don't like that the paper tone doesn't really go with the like really warm tones over here. So I have two thoughts. I could cover it up, which is a waste of a book plate, but I could put this turmeric print to make a like sun up here, or I could paint in a sun. And I think I might paint in a sun and maybe use the print for rays or something else in here, because I can better match these lovely warm tones. So I'm going to break out my paint, my palette, and get started. Okay, so I'm using one of my favorite pigments, quinacridone gold, to get this lovely golden transparent sun in, so I can maintain some of the background images without having to cover up my lovely book plate. And I think that was the right move. And then I'm also going to use the quinacridone gold along with some white to create the antlers for my lovely stag. And I'm just taking this really slow, really deliberate, trying to make the antlers symmetrical. Do they turn out symmetrical? No, but they're not symmetrical in nature either, so it's okay, right? But this was super fun. I love painting trees, so this was just another type of painting trees. And now he's not bald anymore. It's like watching a young man grow into an older man. It's about leaving boyhood behind for the stag. I don't know. I had to let my phone cool down, and while that happened, I started working in the leaves for below the deer, and I wanted more dimensionality, so this is a warning if you have the fear of small holes. There will be some lotus pods visible. I have a die cut machine, and I wanted to do some of these die cut bits, so I have these. I'm not entirely sure what they're meant to be, flowers, but I put them in brown and then I can paint over them, and that can be some of the dimensional foliage. And then I have some leaves. Obviously these are oversized, but I'm going to use them, like break them apart and use them to create some plants at the base on the ground here, kind of like that, so that has more texture. And then lastly, I have these lotus pods, cut them out of the same brown as the tassel bits, and then they have this little top cover to enhance the texture. I'm going to warm up this yellow to match the yellows that are already present, and I think they could be interesting little mushrooms, I guess, little mushroomy things. Yeah, I think it'll be fun. So I'm going to move the book over and do some texturing on these real quick. I'm using the same paints that I squeezed onto my palette earlier out of convenience, and also it harmonizes the whole thing. So I'm using the quinacridone and gold on these lotus pods, using some of the greens that I mixed together for the stag horns. This paper is washi paper, so it's really thin. It's not going to add a lot of bulk to this page, but I don't mind if things get a little bulky. I like a chunky book. I squeezed out some red paint as well to add to these flowers, I suppose, but also mixing in some of those other colors, some of the quinacridone gold, to really get a nice color on there and get some nice differences in texture. And I'm just doing that to every single bit. None of them remain untouched. And now is the time for arranging my leaves. I'm tearing the maple type leaf apart to create these little brushy bits, little brushy type plants. I'm trying to layer the lighter colored leaves in front to create a sense of depth. I'm putting in my mushrooms, and I always try to repeat things 3 times or an odd number of times within a spread, so that's why you'll see there's 3 of the flowers, 3 of the mushrooms, 3 of everything. And this is just like a fun little puzzle. I just get to arrange things in a pleasing way, and I love this about collage. That's why I started doing my skull plant, if you've seen any of those videos, as collage. And it allows me to fluff out this forest scene, make it feel really lush. And I felt like I needed some different colored plants, so I mixed up a quick purple with paints on my palette, again keeping that unity in my color scheme, just to add some different little plants. I have my baby pale blue-green for the ferns still. I added a couple more of those, and I also got to maintain the background paper while creating something that was really lush and really magical and really me. So I'm super happy with how this all turned out. I think it's time for finishing touches. I think the forest floor really brought this to life. Still not entirely sure if I like this, but I can come back to it later, that's okay. We're gonna add some glitter watercolors on top of this. If you get it really nice and thick and you let the paint saturate with water for a while, I've had the water on it for about 3-4 minutes now. If you let it saturate really well, then you don't really run into any issues with the paint not being able to go on a surface. And then I'm also going to take some of this ink here and just go over some of my details on the forest floor, just to add a bit more depth. And I think this will Once my watercolors had saturated and I was done inking all of my edges and adding some ink to the forest floor, I started adding watercolors, and I have to say, the glitter watercolors kind of kicked the metallic acrylics butt. They look so shiny compared to the metallic acrylic, and I will go to bat for shimmery and glitter watercolors. I think they're wonderful. I think they're great. I think they layer well. I could go on and on. But I'm adding glitter watercolors. I'm adding my glowing orbs. They're a repeat motif in my artwork. I'm sure at one point they were intended to be fireflies, but I have since decided in my personal artwork lore that they are glowing balls of magic that are born from flowers. So of course they live in this forest. And yes, that is the majority of this. I added some intentions flying off of the candle. I added as much glitter as I possibly humanly could. Alright, last steps here. I have an acrylic paint pen. Just adding some details to include the trails of the orbs. And I'm going to sign my name here, and I'm going to date it for yesterday because that is when I started this. And we'll see how long it takes me to finish this grimoire. Let's get you some final shots, and I'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, you can like it. If you like to see more of it, you can do the subscribing thing or check me out on my other socials. I'm Galaxy Coop everywhere on the internet. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!